which we don't often necessarily associate as a fearful experience. But so my question is, what is doubt?
I don't know whether doubt is a feeling. I sort of feel more like doubt is a state that we place ourselves in, or to be more specific, that our fear places us in order to prevent us from taking actions. In other words, we often doubt when we're in a situation where we don't know what to do, we don't know what action to take. And most of the time we're in that place is because there is no seeming good outcome from any of the possible actions. So what we do inside of ourselves when we're faced with any choice or decision is we have a situation or circumstance appear. There appears to be no choice that will end up with a happy or joyful outcome for us. And so what we do is we do not want to make any choice. We go into a state of inaction. We don't want to take a decision, just in case that decision may cause our situation to become even worse. And when we do not see any potential positive for any of our choices or decisions, what we decide to do then is to support that state, to support the state of inaction. And doubt causes us to be able to support the state of inaction. We don't have to act upon anything when we're in the state of doubt. And we don't have to get ourselves out of the state of doubt. In fact, we will have all sorts of justifications to ourselves in the state of doubt. We'll say to ourselves, oh, it's impossible to know the truth about that. Or, no, it's impossible to act upon that because no matter what happens, it's going to turn out bad. And so we don't see any light, if you like, at the end of the tunnel. In fact, doubt is closely related to the emotion of hope, in the sense that if we feel hopeless, we will often create many doubts to support our hopelessness. When we have hope, then it causes us to actually have a desire to act in one direction. But when there is no hope, we often then have no idea what to do, no idea what actions we can take.
And would you say that hope is related to faith?
Certainly. Faith, hope, love are all very, very closely related to each other, along with courage, integrity and other emotions. Are all of these, what the human race views as positive emotions, are all very closely related to each other in that they support each other. Doubt is one of these emotions that supports our fear. And so it causes us to have indecision and to not be able to finish up making choices that will actually produce positive or any outcome in our life, actually.
And from what you're saying, it sounds like doubt is actually a place we go to when we want to avoid any emotional experience.
And avoid any action. So in the place of doubt, we attract other people who have the same doubts. I don't know if anybody's ever noticed that, but that's normally what happens. So when you start expressing these doubts and feeling these doubts that you actually have, all of a sudden there's like heaps of spirits and people on earth who just gather around you and say, yeah, it is like that, isn't it? And yeah, that's how I feel too. And yeah, and so now we have a support group for our doubt, which is a support group for us to have no action.
Yeah.
So I often see many groups that have been created on earth, are actually supporting each other to have no action, to remain in a state of doubt, just to talk without doing anything.
So are you saying that when we're in a state of doubt, we can't ever reach a resolution? Is that inherent in the state?
Well, the fastest way to trigger doubt, I feel, is to act. Like, taking an action will actually help us with our doubt. But we need to understand what is the underlying cause of our doubt. The underlying cause of our doubt is our resistance. So a lack of humility towards our own fear. That's the underlying cause of doubt. It's a resistance or a lack of humility towards taking action in our life, to being responsible for our life, for our personal life. Now, God is trying to teach us constantly to take responsibility for our personal life, and we're often in the state whereas we feel like, oh, well, if I do that, then this will happen, and I don't like that outcome. If I do that, this will happen, and I don't like that outcome. If I do that, this will happen, and I don't like that outcome. So it's better for me just to go, I don't know what to do. And then I don't have to choose any of those potential outcomes. And if I can give a more practical situation. So you might be in a relationship where you're having lots of fights and arguments. And fights and arguments are always caused by each person, usually in the relationship, not wanting, or at least one of the persons in the relationship, not wanting to be humble, not wanting to look at the actual emotion that exists within themselves, right? And so what we do in this relationship is we fight. Now, obviously, we like fighting.
Or we wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Right? And one of the reasons why we like fighting is because fighting gets us out of acting any differently. We don't have to do something different. It's something that we're comfortable with, right? And we don't have to do anything different. We don't have to come to a resolution of why we are fighting, right? And doubt causes us to avoid the underlying reasons as to why we're fighting. We can focus on, unfortunately, and many people do in a relationship, is they focus on the problem being the fight and the subject of the fight, rather than seeing that actually it's all about the avoidance of specific emotions inside of themselves that they're in fear of feeling. And their inability to make a choice different is due to their doubt. They don't know what different choice they can make, only because they don't like the potential outcomes of the different choices. So, for example, if you're fighting and you choose differently, you could choose to walk away. But why don't you walk away? There's got to be a reason that it will turn out to be uncomfortable or for you. So what do you choose to do? You could sit there and take the other person's rage and feel how bad that feels. But why don't you want to do that? Oh, because that means that I'll be humiliated, or somebody, be harming me, and I want to defend myself, and I want to be rebellious to that, or something like that. So I don't like that outcome. And, I could choose to separate from the person. Oh, then all my emotional insecurities and all my financial insecurities are all triggered. So that doesn't seem like a very good outcome. So what am I left with? Fighting. And I'll stay in fighting for as long as it takes for me to realise that I have another choice. But I don't want to take any of those choices, and so I'd rather doubt that those choices will ever lead me anywhere. So I say, that won't work, that won't work, that won't work, that won't work, and I'm left with fighting. And I like that.
So you're really saying perpetual fighting, is being in a state of doubt?
Well, it's about resistance to taking another action. And the only reason why we would resist taking another action is because we're afraid. And so, and the only reason why we don't want to act is because we're afraid. And in between the two feelings, like the fear and the fighting, is our doubt that any other action will actually fix the problem.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? And so we don't believe the actual problem will be fixed. We have a feeling of hopelessness associated with the problem actually being repaired, and we feel that, and we keep doing the same thing over and over. The definition of stupidity, same thing over and over again. We keep doing it because we do not wish to take another action, and therefore we lack humility. Right?
Yeah. Okay. Couple more questions about doubt itself.
Yep.
In this postmodernist world, I've heard it said that doubt is actually a good thing.
Yeah, doubt has become an attractive bohemian lifestyle attribute, basically.
A mark of your
a person's intellectual prowess and philosophical state.
Yeah.
And the reality is, no, it just has masked a whole heap of fears that the majority of those people do not want to face. They don't want to face that they don't know the answers, or they don't want to face that the answers are not very pleasant, for example. And so we can then go into a state of, maybe this is true, maybe that's true, but I don't know. And when I don't know, I don't have to make any decision. I don't have to make any choice. I don't have to actually do something to fix the problem. I can just keep remaining in this place for as long as it takes. For as long as it takes often is our entire life. Unfortunately, and this is how the world stays in a state of very little change, because the majority of people love to feel that there is no solution, because a solution requires them to change, and they don't want to change, and they're afraid of change. And why are they afraid of change? Because they're afraid of all the emotions involved in change, right? And so what they do is they then go into a state of, I doubt that there's any solution. Now I can live in this state of hopelessness and justify it completely to myself as a state of inaction, and therefore nothing around me will change. The world won't change either in that state. And I can talk about, philosophise about how the world is and isn't it terrible how it is, and yet I am a primary contributor by remaining in my fear to taking action and by justifying my doubt to myself.
Yeah, and often I seem to see that the idea of having a firm belief is considered to be naive, and that doubt is somehow seen to be synonymous with questioning. And from what you're saying, questioning and doubt are two very different things.
Yeah, doubt is a place where you've already made up your mind. It's not a questioning attitude. You've already made up your mind because you've already made up your mind there is no good outcome. There is no outcome that isn't going to trigger a fear that you have inside of yourself. And so you've already made up your mind as to what the truth is and that there is no truth on the particular issue. That's what you've actually decided inside of yourself when you're in a state of doubt. You've already decided there is no truth and you're just trying to look for some justification of that being true.
So it's the opposite of asking a question.
It's
really.
the opposite of asking a question. A person who asks a question like a child, you look how a child learns. The reason why a child learns so rapidly is a child has no doubt to fight with through the process of learning. Generally, it has very little fear associated with learning for the same, and therefore it creates no doubt. It creates no desire to not act. It's going to act upon what it learns. A child knows that. Every single day it acts on what it learns. From the moment it gets up. Like, you look at how a child learns to walk. It gets up, wiggles, wobbles, wiggles, wobbles, bang, hits its head, cries, feels the emotion. It's not afraid of being hurt. It's not afraid of falling down the stairs. Even though it can't walk, it's still not afraid of falling down the stairs. And it falls down the stairs, and it bumps and bangs. It's got all these injuries and bruises, but it gets up again every single time because it's just released the emotion associated with it. It still has no fear.
It doesn't sit there and say, I doubt whether I was created to walk.
Yeah, I doubt whether I was created to walk because I'm having so many injuries while it's happening. Yeah. Like, it doesn't say that at all. It doesn't use any intellectual process like that. What it does instead is it allows itself to go through a process and it stands, wobbles, falls over, gets hurt, and even when it gets hurt, it doesn't hold on to the hurt. It just has a big cry. Usually mum or daddy gives it a hug as well, it gets a bit of love as well in the process. And 5 minutes later, where is it again? In the same situation, standing up again. And often in the same dangerous situation, standing up again and having the same dangerous effect until it processes its hurt every single time. And eventually it learns how to walk. And once it learns how to walk, it has confidence, it's got all the confidence, and usually this happens within a period of like 3 months or less for the average child. With 3 months, its life has changed. Right? Now, if we had the same action as adults as that, we would learn very rapidly, and we would also do very many more powerful things than we are currently doing if we had that attitude. The problem, though, is that majority of us don't do that. We are so afraid of being hurt, and the child isn't. The child gets a hurt, bang, hurts itself, has a big cry, it's all gone. The hurt's even gone. It can go and play and laugh after it's been hurt, after it's had that cry, because it's released the fear associated with it. And once it's done that, it then acts again. It continually acts. And we grow up thinking we're now adults and we're all, like bohemian and worldly, and we've got all of these lovely qualities, and one of them is our philosophical doubt, and we hold on to this as if it's some kind of sign of our development, of maturity, and sometimes a sign of our growth. But the reality is, it's a sign that we're in a state where we do not want to act and we do not want to make a decision. That's the sign.
And no growth ever happens unless we...
Cannot happen. Yeah. And in this state of doubt, we lack humility to every other emotion in that state. We even lack the humility to feeling our emotions of a lack of hope, for example. A feeling that no matter what I do, I'll fail. No matter what I do, I will be unhappy. Now, these are very strong feelings of grief that exist within the average person that we get to not feel because we can stay in this state of doubt and philosophize about our state of doubt in order to avoid those emotions.
So if I found myself in a state of doubt, I would need to recognise that I'm actually just avoiding some other emotion that I'm afraid of.
Doubt is an addiction covering our fear.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to see it as such. It's something that we're addicted to so that we do not have to act.
Great.
It allows us to remain in 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or 100 minds, and never make a final choice or decision.
Yeah.
And many of us are totally afraid of making final choices and decisions. When we made decisions when we were younger, oftentimes if it was the wrong decision in terms of society's viewpoint or our parents' viewpoint, we got severely punished, many times violently. So we have a lot of fear of violence associated with our desire to doubt.